Good afternoon. My name is Det Ansinn. I'm president and founder of Brick Simple, a development studio with offices outside of Philadelphia, San Francisco, Boston, and Myrtle Beach for some reason. I'm going to talk to you today about designing hands-free and context-driven experiences using augmented reality. One of the great corruptions that occurs with user interface, user experience design, is that we went from mouse pointing and clicking to touching screens, that all of these metaphors that we've been attached to are things that go back to Xerox. And with augmented reality experiences, virtual reality experiences, we really need to have experiences that are much more seamless with how we interact with the world, that are much more natural, that don't adopt the conventions of clicking on a screen, but instead adopt conventions that meet our real world expectations. I mean, that ideal vision, that pure vision of that augmented reality being something that it's my real world, it's my mixed reality experience that is the interaction, and not that I'm dragging a cursor, clicking on something, grabbing a controller. Those types of things take you away from that experience and make the technology something that's distracting. And for us, whenever I feel like if we're back doing glass, if I'm touching glass, if I have to grab a controller, if I have to use some kind of clicker, is that suddenly I'm taken out of that experience. So how do you make these experiences work in ways that feel seamless, they feel natural, they feel interactive? I'm going to start with this one here. We had an earlier panel that talked about art and AR. How do you make that work? Well, we were posed with that question back in 2013, working with this gentleman, artist David DeTuna. He's located in Brooklyn. He's a very successful contemporary artist. And he managed to get a hold of Google Glass devices. How can we make this work with the art? You got to love the enthusiasm. And we got together with David and tried to figure out, how do we do this? And full confession, I am from the Nerdcast, if that wasn't clear already. As this person, how do you make something like this work? And part of it is, what's the opportunity presented? And so often as technologists, we get this bias and this kind of shiny object syndrome. Oh, this is the new thing. Let's put everything on the watch. And we all saw how well that turned out. Everyone wants to do these things. They want to constantly know, how do we thrust it in? So for us, we realized the way to make this experience work, and part of when you look at a piece by David, which has these wonderful eyeglass elements, and it's a whole collage of information, how do we make it work? And we thought that, how can we improve the engagement? So when someone looks at something, and this is kind of these core Platonic AR principles we talked about before, that if I can look at something, can I have more information? Can I be more engaged in that experience? Could I get the full vision of the artist by looking at the piece? So we spent time doing that, so that we took advantage of various sensors. The user has to do nothing but put on the glass. We use wireless location. We use all these little visual cues to set off. And also remember those AR markers. If you're a developer, they're not just for going and putting an elf or leprechaun on them. They're for location positioning, all these great opportunities. We looked at all of this stuff, and we came up with an experience with the artwork that was hugely successful, not just because the piece did Art Basel and Lincoln Center. We also did Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery. We put 23,000 people through this art experience that combined Google Glass and physical artwork in a weekend. It didn't blow up, it didn't work, it didn't fail any time. The only issue we had is that someone kicked out a power plug at one point, but anyone who's on the production side knows these things happen. But what it did as we were doing this, it really informed us of how we have access to all of these sensors, how do we leverage it? And as Stephen mentioned earlier, everything I'm showing here, there's no bullshot here where people show, hey, this is the artist's conception of how it could actually work. Blood, sweat, and tears on how it actually worked. And it really worked well and inspired us that we had done a lot of that traditional smartphone, the old school stuff jumping out of the cereal boxes AR, which you try once and that's cute. And we're thinking, how can we do things that are much more valuable? So we took a lot of those lessons learned and that kind of experience and make it a seamless experience, and did something interesting for Janssen Pharmaceutical that appeared at the ASCO conference. With humbleness, it won some awards. But what we did is say, how can we improve the experience for someone moving through our world? And in this case, we leveraged, again, in this state-of-the-art, this one was the glass device. But we leveraged that glass device combined with Bluetooth BLE location technology. So we could know where they were at. We could triangulate their position. We could tell what they were looking at by the sensors of the device. So instead of them having to go and actively interact, it just seamlessly flowed. As they went through the booth experience, it just worked. And having that kind of eureka moment that the best type of user input for these things are things the user does, not necessarily a direct action, not a button click, not a controller click, that the best interactions we had is that people could just kind of seamlessly experience this with the rest of what they're doing. And that aspirationally, we try to do that with a lot of AR, and it's thinking how we can really make these types of interfaces work. So we've done a few automotive experiences. We did an under hood experience, which was grand because you could open up the hood and then magically see all the pop-ups there. If you looked over at the one particular fluid or information, you would see information about that. You'd see that tied in. We also tied in these experiences using a OBD adapter, which goes under your dash in your car and get access to all this information. So not just seeing what's visually there, because you're experienced visually, I can look at that and I don't need your Fandango glasses. But if I can go and see that and I can see fault codes and statistics information, that suddenly my world's enriched because that augmentation, and earlier John was on stage, he talked about that, that extension, that augmented limb, that having this be something where it's much more natural, where you're not having to do anything special with the interaction. I put on my crazy goggles and do that, and I'm able to interact with this experience and see data, see the things that I can't see. And I think, and it was comment earlier on one of the panels, which I was like, yes, there's so much of this kind of big data hype that if I have access to the data, I'm going to be smart enough to act upon it. And the reality is that actionable data is the stuff that's going to be the most meaningful. And if I look at an engine, there's a ton of things I can see. But if I'm looking at a particular area, give me the information that I care about. And that kind of rolls into when you look at the state of we've worked on device, basically every smart glass wearable, I think as Pete can attest, we've had to touch, handle, work with all these things. We're all trying to find that technology really fulfills that vision. There's the stuff that sounds great in the marketing meeting, the stuff that sounds great in the demo that you get saddled with, like how's this actually going to work? And really with the arrival of HoloLens and the Meta devices now, is that it delivers that wow factor kind of experience. Like this, okay, we're getting closer. Got a little field of view, I'm looking at things through like tubes, but I feel like we're getting closer. And this picture, what excites me about this picture is this is not some Getty image or whatnot. This is an actual user of one of our applications at an event we did in Prague. And I took that picture, like that kind of excitement. I've never written a smartphone app that's done that to anyone, never did that kind of reaction. And in the VR, you really can't see all the eyes. You kind of see the grunts and the awkward shuffling. But to have that interaction, and what was special about this interaction to me wasn't yes, it's cool, and it's HoloLens, and he can only wear this for a half hour before he needs a neck brace. But the win of this is that he was excited because it was a plant application that gave information to users working in a factory. That we tied in live information, which PTC folks love these points. They got a great stack for doing, but we are able to tie in information and provide that kind of user interface that's not the Minority Report where everyone had said ad nauseum how many pitches you've been to. They want that Minority Report interface for doing their AR for some reason, or accounting versus augmented reality. We actually gave them the ability to go take this and create a workspace while they were working, that they'd have access to that reference materials, they have access to temperatures of the machines, and do this. And having this at scale, where this is currently used in Germany and Mexico for plant workers in their troubleshooting what they're doing, is hugely impactful. And we think about these things, we think about trying to create experiences that have the wow factor, but here, this is wow factor and giving them information. Again, it's like cautionary and the shiny objects. Shiny objects is one thing. Shiny objects that add value to the experience, whether or not you are looking at art, whether or not you are in a plant, having access to information in a way that works seamlessly. Because every time I have to go pull out a clicker or hit something on my head or try to give spoken, and we do some speech commands, speech is great for that. Speech is great when it's natural. But if I have to say the same command more than once, it's suddenly not natural. It is the most frustrating assistant ever. We had an incident 2 years ago in our office where I got in a fight with an AI. The staff marked it on a calendar, and I got to fight the AI because of the frustration, because we do want to have that kind of experience. And when you think about these things, this allows us to give people information in ways we haven't been able to do so before. And that's not just giving me a version of the spreadsheet that floats in space, which I see a bit of that in AR. It's like, okay, hooray, there's that data in the charts or a pie chart or whatnot. Give me something that allows me to really visualize what's going on. And this is a solution that we developed with the University of Pennsylvania Center for Resuscitation Science with Marianne Leary and her spin out there, Emerge Labs. We created a HoloLens experience. This is a 2 HoloLens experience, actually filmed from the other HoloLens, that shows you what happens when you're doing CPR compressions. It's very difficult to have someone visualize what's actually taking place. And these are all GIFs that will be available in the online download. That's why they're in GIF quality. But it gives that person direct feedback while they're performing CPR. So that when you're doing those compressions, it's not that you need to push this hard because I tell you to, it's that you can actually see the effect of pumping. So what we do here, as we integrate with machines on the factory floor, here we're taking data from the Laerdal mannequin, from the centers of the Laerdal mannequin, and using that to drive the medically accurate animation so that they know what they're doing while performing CPR. So when folks see this in action, it's something that's remarkable because it reinforces it in a way you couldn't before. And this is kind of experience. The number of menus in this application are 0. The number of buttons in this application are 0. The number of options in this application are 0. You simply place it on, perform CPR, and you see that, and at the end it will provide you a nice score of how you did and how you behaved and how you interacted. And that kind of visibility and being able to do that, I think when we go through, we have it's a great day of dreaming, and these past 2 days going through some ideas, is that you think about all these ideas coming together, that we're hitting that happy convergence. We're hitting this happy convergence where we're getting to the point where we can provide that level of visualization. We can provide the kinds of intelligence and machine learning where this is no longer something from a user experience perspective that you have to go and operate. You don't need to be a trained operator of this. That intuitively it becomes part of how you learn, how you perform activities, how you perform different tasks. And I know we are absolutely crammed for time. I have my contact information here. If anyone wants to hit me up, my Twitter feed is politicsfree if you're looking for one of those right now. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak here and the privilege and also the amazing folks which I've already met and some of the familiar faces. Just thank you so much, and I welcome your questions and comments, of course, after the meeting. So thank you.